Hour of the Wolf is a psychological horror mystery film released in 1968, directed by the great Ingmar Bergman. It stars Bergman staples Max von Sydow and Liv Ullmann, and it was his only direct foray into the horror genre. I consider it amongst his best work, and it is one of my favorite horror films of all time. It tells the story of a married couple, an artist, Johann Borg, and his pregnant wife, Alma. While vacationing on a remote German island, Johann has an emotional breakdown while confronting his repressed desires. This is not an easy film. If you're looking for a clear story and simple answers, look somewhere else. But if you want to be perplexed, challenged, and mystified, look no further. Bergman defines Hour of the Wolf as the time between midnight and dawn, when most people die, when sleep is deepest, when nightmares are most palatable. It is the hour when the sleepless are pursued by their sharpest anxieties, when ghosts and demons hold sway. The film opens with Alma breaking the fourth wall. Johann has disappeared, and she has been reading his diary. And the movie tells its story based on those diary entries as well as Alma's account. The following scene is of them outside their home, and Johann tells Alma he wants to draw her, and she poses for him. This turns out to be the only scene in the film where both characters are happy and at peace. This scene ends abruptly, and the following scene is brief and jarring. There is no communication in this scene, and Johann is quiet and appears troubled. The whipping laundry is a nice visual motif which seems to suggest the disturbance and turmoil Johann is experiencing. After this is one of the best scenes in the film, all captured in close-up in one take. Johann shows Alma some of his drawings he's been working on. They're drawings of people, but he's describing them as if they are monsters. The lighting here is perfect, as he is in shadow and Alma is lit. After he stands and turns up the lantern, his face now exposed. Bergman has just shed some light and exposed Johann's mental state as well. Alma is unsettled by the drawings but is unsure what to do. She genuinely loves Johann. She wants to grow old with him, but she is being confronted with something scary, the deteriorating mind of the one she loves. Hour of the Wolf's cinematography is great. It's very intimate, as much of the film is shot in close-up. Bergman and cinematographer Sven Nykvist focus on faces. They want to capture the emotions and expressions of the characters. And the emotions and feelings are complex, and the camera captures them. After this, Alma is visited by an unknown old woman who tells her to make sure Johann never throws out his drawings, and she also tells her where to find Johann's diary and that she should read it. She reads a couple entries and learns that Johann has an unidentified illness. She also reads about a sexual encounter he had with a woman on the beach, and also about an incident where he physically assaults a man. Following this, Johann and Alma are at a dinner party at a castle on the island. The film up until this point has been quiet and leisurely paced, but this scene is loud and chaotic, with overlapping dialogue and a constantly panning camera. Nothing is explicitly said, but the party guests seem to have ill intentions. There is just this sinister vibe to this entire scene. Johann and Alma also appear very unsettled and uncomfortable. Following the dinner, the host shows them a puppet play. It's a scene from Mozart's The Magic Flute. This is a very perplexing scene. It seems Bergman is drawing a comparison between Mozart's play and Johann. In the play, Tamino sings about an endless night, and he is in search for his lover, Pamina. Johann is facing an endless night in his mind, and perhaps part of what troubles Johann is that he is also searching for his lover. Not Alma, but Veronica Vogler. She is the woman from the beach encounter we see from his diary entry. Shortly after this, Alma tells Johann she's been reading his diary. Back at home, we get a beautifully lit scene where Johann tells a traumatic story of him being abused as a child. And then he follows it up with another, and we get the most horrific and disturbing scene in the film. It's presented in extremely contrasted black and white, with an eerie and dark musical score. Johann tells about a time he was out fishing, and a young boy is there watching him. And then, completely unprovoked, Johann attacks the boy. The boy attempts to fight back by biting him in the neck. Johann then crushes the boy up against some rocks, rendering him nearly unconscious. And then he takes a rock and smashes it against the boy's head, killing him. He then disposes his body in the water. This story comes out of nowhere. Why Johann just all of a sudden decides to reveal his secret to Alma is unclear, as is why he even committed this act in the first place. We knew Johann was one struggling in his mind, but with this scene, we get a clearer glimpse of just what sort of demons he's dealing with. There's no comment made by either character in regards to this scene. It's just another layer to Johann's disturbed mind. Johann then reveals some details about his past relationship with Veronica Vogler. They were together for 5 years. Veronica was cheating on her husband with Johann, and the relationship ended when her husband found out and came and took her away. Johann was admitted to a hospital after this and was unable to see her for several years. Johann then attempts to shoot Alma and escapes to the castle because he believes Veronica is there. This leads to the climactic sequence. The following 15 minutes are bizarre, surreal, and abstract. It's difficult to interpret what occurs here, but if nothing else, it gives us further insight into Johann's mind. During this sequence, Johann breaks the fourth wall and says, "Thank you for crossing the line. The mirror has been shattered, but what do the shards reflect?" We learn shortly after this that the characters at the castle are simply spirits or ghosts. They are the remains of Johann's shattered mind who have remained to torture him and remind him of his actions, thoughts, and feelings. They are the monsters of Johann's drawings that he showed Alma earlier in the film. Johann then retreats to the woods and is followed by Alma, where he is attacked by these ghosts and seemingly dies due to self-inflicted wounds. Earlier in the film, during the party scene, Johann says that in his art, nothing is implicit except compulsion. Since we learn that Johann drew these characters, I believe they represent his compulsions. It's his compulsions that haunt and torment him. What exactly are these compulsions? The first is megalomania. Later, in the same scene, Johann says he deals with this. He has delusions of greatness. It's made known multiple times that the party characters are all big fans of his work, but again, these are just his compulsions speaking. So, when he gets an inflated ego, he just reminds himself that nothing he does ultimately matters. His second compulsion is jealousy mixed with obsession. He's jealous of Veronica's husband. He wants what he can't have, and because he can't have it, he settles for someone he doesn't truly love, Alma. It's also quite clear he's obsessed with Veronica, and this obsession is part of what drives him mad. During the climactic sequence, while Johann is engaged in a fantasy with Veronica, one of the ghosts says to him, "Now you are yourself, but not yourself, an ideal state for a meeting between lovers." These meetings between Johann and Veronica are part of what causes Johann to begin to lose himself and his sense of identity. Finally, there is the compulsion of violence, which we see it expressed when he slaps one of the party guests, who happens to be a psychiatrist. Perhaps Johann has been resistant to those who could help him. There's the violence that manifests in the murder of the boy, and finally these violent compulsions lead Johann to take his own life. The film concludes back at the start with Alma addressing the audience, and she says, "There are so many things to ponder, so many questions." This is exactly how we feel as an audience. We never get all the answers. Instead, we are left wrestling with the questions. And this is what makes Hour of the Wolf a rich and worthwhile experience, and an overall great psychological horror film. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I'd greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you next time on The Haunted Beard.